Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Jillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Easy Peasy Books podcast. Today, I have a friend across the pond who's actually in Switzerland at the moment. That's kind of fun. And so Mick Adam is here, and we are on the eve of his book launch, which will be happening very, very soon. And so we are doing this podcast in advance to kind of, just because we're so excited. We can't wait for this book to launch, Mick. It's just so great. And I have to tell you, I've already started reading my advanced copy, and I love it. I love it. I love it. So, okay, before we get stuck in, Mick, let's go back a second. Introduce yourself, tell people who you are and what you do, and then we will start chatting.
All right. So my name is Mick Adam. Yes, I have two first names if you're in the US. I live in Belgium. I live in the lovely town called Bruges, which many people know. And I'm a LinkedIn trainer, consultant that is working in Europe and North America.
I love that. I love that. And so you have written a book, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, your book journey, because I love book journeys because I think it gives other people inspiration. It lets people know about your book of two, but it gives people inspiration of, oh my gosh, this is something I can do. And it's, I love that yours took a while. It's like I love that you've been a LinkedIn expert for over 20 years. And you just kind of like, well, really, shouldn't you have been the first person to write a book? But you took your time. You took your time. And so I guess the first question is, well, first of all, before we even get into that, let's talk about your book, what your book is before we start the journey. So first of all, I wanted to say the title is Mic Drop, the human side of LinkedIn, but it could be Mick Drop, the human side of LinkedIn as well. And we just kind of laughed about that beforehand because we said it's kind of like tomato, potato, patata, however people are going to say it, they're going to say it. Just talk about it. And that's the main thing. So Mick, see, now we're getting confused. Mick, tell us a little bit, isn't it? It's cute. It's cute. Tell us a little bit about the book before we get into your journey. What is your book about?
Well, the book is, first of all, it's not a how-to book because as we all know, LinkedIn changes on a daily basis. So creating a how-to book is already running behind the leading pack or, whatever you want to call it. But so my book is more of I would say more of a philosophical overview, but containing a lot of tips and tricks in the meantime, because as you said, I've been on the platform for 22 years. I was there at the beginning, and I've seen LinkedIn change over the years. And that was really my motivation to put that whole journey together from where did we start with LinkedIn and where did we evolve to today, and that journey isn't done because it's never going to be done. So what is my book about? My book is about the journey and how LinkedIn has changed our lives and how we're using it today, and obviously, with tips and tricks to make the usage better.
I love it. I love it. And I have to say that I am highlighting so much in this book. It's just like, oh, that's so good. I got to mark that. I got to mark that. I got to mark that. There's just so many ahas. And I think the very fact that you have this long history with LinkedIn, this is
Mhm.
my just golden nuggets about it, is that you give this, like, you zoom out, like, I've been here, I've seen it, I've seen people come and go, I've seen LinkedIn change and do this and do that, like, you were, like, in the under 500, like, your member number, you're under the, 500,000 mark, and so you've been around the block and you've seen LinkedIn from the long run, but then you zoom in and you talk very
Mhm.
granular about things. So I constantly feel like I'm zoomed out, I'm getting this big picture overview, and then you're like, okay, now let's talk about this. And then you zoom in on a topic. And I don't know if you intended to write it like that, but that's how it came across with me. And it's a very, very effective way to read a book. So just kudos, kudos.
Thank you. But the thing is, when I wrote the book, there are things happening on LinkedIn, and if you don't know where they're coming from, it's hard to zoom into, yeah, because you're stuck on these details. So you need to go and zoom out, understand where all of this is coming from, and then the explanation becomes much more clear and obviously, hopefully, beneficial to the use of people, of your LinkedIn use.
I love it. I love it. And your whole philosophy of LinkedIn being a human experience, I think is it just really resonates throughout the whole book, and it's really
Mhm.
part of your brand. And one thing that that stood out for me is
Mhm.
that you said you don't connect with people until you have a conversation with them, and a conversation can mean many different things. But I think about how many people I'm connected to that,
Yep.
like, I don't even know who they are. I've never had a conversation with them, and if I saw them and I'd go, "Oh, I didn't even know I was connected with them," which is crazy, and then there's other people who I converse with all the time in the comments, and then all of a sudden I'll go, "I'm not even connected to them. How do I have this mismatch going on?"
Right. Well, which is actually true. I mean, it's been my philosophy from the beginning, is only to connect with people that I know, and I do have a network of 17,000 people at this point. But I can put my hand on my heart and say that 85%, 90%, we have had at least one conversation that could have been through LinkedIn, could be through email, could have been through the phone. Maybe we've met. Maybe we've even had, agreements and disagreements on LinkedIn, which I also consider to be a conversation because it gave us a reason to start conversations. So, but I think it is important if you build the or if you're on a platform like LinkedIn, is that you build those relationships, and when you build those relationships, you build bridges of trust, and those bridges of trust help you further build your network. So I don't get people who connect with 100 people a day and have no idea who they are. I just don't get it, because how can you build a network of people that trust you?
Well,
And
that's
that for me has been the underlying motive for the book, which is the second part of the title, which is the human side of LinkedIn, because I want to inspire people with my book to make their use of LinkedIn more human.
I agree 100%, and you're right, because if you're just connecting with people, and some people do have that goal, 10 a day, it's like 100 a month, they have these ridiculous, because they think it's all about the
Yeah,
big numbers. Like, I gotta get to the big
exactly.
numbers. But all you're doing is it's kind of like you're collecting business cards, and sort of like how you talked about in the beginning when you had, you talked about your experience about having business cards in the real world, and then it was just like you put them in a box, you put them in a Rolodex, and then they ended up going in shoe boxes and multiple shoe boxes, and on it went. And some
Yep.
people treat LinkedIn like that. They just have shoe boxes of contacts, but that's not a
Yep.
network. That's just a collection.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we have lost, or at least a number of people have lost the human side of this network. I mean, if you got business cards from people you never talked to, at some point you threw them away. I didn't, but at the end I caught up because all the business cards that I had, I basically reconnected with these people, had a conversation, and we made it work again.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so now going back to my first question, which was what took you like at what point did you say, "Okay, now it's time after being 20 plus years on this platform, I am ready to write my book."
Mhm.
What was the trigger for you? What changed?
Well, to be honest, I tried to write a book twice already before that, but it was talking to somebody who kind of helped me create a book that was a little less time linked. I mean, everything I've written before and I started on was about the platform at that time, and it was already, like I said, it was already old and out when it would have been published. And I wanted to write a book that could survive time. And I met with somebody who actually convinced me that that is possible, which is why there are 0 screens in my book. There is no screenshot at all.
And I think that's wise to
And
do because
that
you want to keep it
actually,
evergreen.
yeah. And that was I think that was the hurdling block I was confronted with all the time in my mind. And that person took that hurdle away. And I am an active user of LinkedIn. I have a lot of data. I have a lot of posts. So it became easy to write once I took off the limit that it, basically had to include screenshots.
Mm, I think you're wise to do that because I know so many people, LinkedIn trainers, and just other people who are writing books on other platforms. They they do a great job, but then their book is outdated, and then they don't want to. They either say, "Well, now I've got to update it," or in second edition, third edition, like on and on it goes, or else then they just don't even want to promote it anymore because they feel like,
Mm.
eh, people are going to read it and say, "Well, they don't have that feature anymore," or "What about this new feature? They didn't even talk about that." So I think you have to. I think you're very wise to make your book evergreen. So I think that was very smart. That was very smart of you.
And and actually zooming out of the details of every day, which then I zoomed back into, but that also helped to, you know, tear down the walls in my mind that the book that I wanted to write was going to be a little less timeless or a little less time bound or whatever you want to call it. So, um, but yeah, it was a great conversation with a person, and it triggered 300 odd pages.
It's a big book. It's a big book. It's a big book. So how long did it actually take you to write your book?
Here we go. That's an interesting question. Writing the actual book, I signed up with a book person to write the manuscript in 100 days, and I actually did it in about 60. The only element is I didn't realize initially how much editing I would have to do on the original manuscript that I wrote. So that's why it took a little longer to actually get it published. But I wrote the book in about 60 days, knowing that I have a lot of content that I used in the book when it came down to zoom in and zoom out. So in itself, it was not very well, it was time consuming, but it was a short period of time. And then from there, once you get to that point, then it's just a matter of going through all the steps.
Yes, yes. And so were you still doing other things in your life or were you just like you took that time out to write? How did you kind of do that?
Um, Actually, I still was doing trainings and I'm still doing trainings. I still see customers. I still help customers during that whole phase. And I'm not a type of person who kind of blocks time in their calendar, say Friday morning from 9 to 12, I'm going to write. It doesn't work for me. However, there were moments where I said, okay, now I think of this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to start writing. And so it became somewhat of an erratic writing and not something very structured in terms of finishing the manuscript, because that's where all the work went into. I think all the other steps, which is the proofreading, the typesetting, the actual publishing setup, all of that are pretty, I would say, mechanical steps. But the creative steps were, yeah, it just happened.
Yes, that's good. That's good. And was there did you find that there was things that you had to leave out? Like, did you feel like, okay, no, this feels complete, or could you have just like kept going?
Well, to be all honest with you, my writing coach, or the person who helped me through those 60 days, had me cut a lot of stuff from the original manuscript
Mm.
because it was really, really too long. I mean, even though the amount I have today is considered too much, but as a writer, I put my foot down and I said, this is what I want to, produce. And yes, it is the bit number of pages it is, but I could have gone on. But I compare it to writing a LinkedIn post. At some point, you got to say, this is it. It's not gonna, it's not perfect, but I need to cut, somewhere. And this was a good moment.
It's good. It's good. And, I think that there's really no rule. I think a book can be as short as you think, as long as you think. And I think it's the author that makes the decision of this was my goal. And now everything in this book is part of that goal, or I call it the reader's promise. This is what I promise to give the reader. And by the end, I want to make sure I don't shortchange them. I gave them what I thought they
Yeah,
needed to have.
exactly.
Okay, that's good.
Exactly, and that's how I cut off the end, or I cut off the saying, this is the manuscript. It is what it is. I don't want to. I could have, but I don't want to continue to build on it. It might be material for a next book. It might be material for an update. I don't know, but at this point, it's just like, okay, I need to get this off my chest. This needs to be done. It needs to be signed, sealed, and delivered. And then so that I let it go.
I love that. I love that. So, getting back to your book, Mick, um, your book is not
Mhm.
do this and you'll be an influencer, right? It's
Yeah.
just like it's a different approach, and I love that. You talk about community so much. It's all about the
Mhm.
people and getting to know people
Right.
and doing things. So,
Right.
can you tell me, who do you see this book is for? Is it for newbies on LinkedIn? Anybody who's been there a while, a mixture of people? Like what problem does it sort of solve?
Well, I think this is probably not a newbie book in the sense that I'm not telling them how to set up a profile, how to network, and all of that stuff. I mean, there are tips and tricks in there, but I think they're more targeted at I've been on LinkedIn. I've probably not used it the way I should be using it. So it's kind of like people that have been there for a while, who want to take the platform seriously and who want to get results, which is also what I see in my daily practice. Because the newbie trainings, at least my side of the world, is slowly, I won't say dying, but there's less and less people that need to be told how to set up their profile and how to send a connection request and all of that stuff. But a lot of people have been there for a while, and they're asking, what's next? I didn't get anything out of this. Why didn't I get anything out of it? What can I do to get more out of it? And that's kind of like the audience. I'm not trying to talk to the power users neither. So those are, they will like some of the things probably that I've written about, especially AI. But it's kind of like the people who are stuck in the middle, who have a profile, have been there for a while, don't get results, but really want to move on and get better
Mm,
results.
mm, mm. And I can tell you that that absolutely that's what I felt when I was reading it. It's that, okay, if you're the kind of person who's really been on here for a while, but you're scratching your head going, I'm doing the things. I'd follow I'm doing a post 3 times a week and I'm doing this. What am
Mhm.
I doing wrong? That's what I feel that the book is
Right,
speaking to me, and it's interesting. I
right.
was yesterday I was on LinkedIn and I was looking at this one woman's profile and I won't of course name her name, but she had 50,000
Mhm.
people in her network, and I don't know if they're connections or followers, but she had 50,000 and yet her posts had like no comments or one comment and I was shocked that she had such little engagement with such a big network because
Mhm.
I think we all feel
Mhm.
that if we could only get to 25,000, we could just post anything and people would like it because there's so many people. But it was really interesting. I was kind of going through some of her posts, and she had
Mhm.
this one post that said, I had a really good following, a very engaged network, but then I took a year off and had AI write my posts. And she says, and I did that for a whole year, and I'm now back. That didn't work for me. And I'm now back writing my post by hand. But I thought to myself, you lost our trust. That's why nobody's engaging with you. You're probably not engaging back. But and I think that's one thing your book highly speaks to, Mick,
Mm.
the importance of trust. And so can you elaborate on that? Because that to me just jumps out in
Mm.
the book that trust is everything. That's so important.
For me, trust is the new currency. It's if you, I mean, you can know somebody or you can know of somebody, but the only way that you're actually going to reach out to them is if there is mutual trust built between two humans. And AI will never replace that. You know, whatever you try and do, it's not going to work with AI. So building that trust, starting those conversations, trust becomes, like I said, it's the new currency, or it's a currency that we've had a long time, but now it becomes something visible, it becomes something tangible that people need to look at, and that's how you move forward. And you can't build trust with 50,000 people. I'm sorry, unless you spend 24/7 on LinkedIn, you're not going to build that trust with those 25,000 or these 50,000 people. You have a small group, and there's a lot of numbers out there, but I mean, you can only build a network around a limited number of people you know really well, and then it kind of waters down as the network grows, and people look at these big numbers and are jealous. I'm not. I'd rather have 500 connections that engage with me than 50,000 people who follow me when nobody is even looking at what I'm doing.
I agree 100% because it's about having the right people, and it's at the end of the day, are you
Yeah.
converting are you converting people into
Yeah.
clients? That's the important thing because you can have big numbers, but if nobody's raising their hand and afterwards saying, "Hey, I want to meet with you. I want to talk with you,"
Yeah.
then you're just a broadcaster. You're nothing's going on there. So it's
Right.
the right people. It's getting in front of the right people and
And,
building trust with those people.
and yeah, and it's. I mean, what I look at often is when I was in sales before LinkedIn existed, I used business cards, and I kind of like got the level of trust when the person on the other side who gave me the business card told me what his birthday was, so I could mark it on the back of a business card, or the name of the spouse, or the kids and the whatever hobbies. All of that used to go on a business card and was a sign of trust at that time. it was more than just the business card. It was, the detail. And that's also where I see today with LinkedIn, that kind of conversations coming back in the DMs and emails, phone calls, whatever. But when you get that kind of information without it coming out of LinkedIn being scraped, I mean, that's a sign that that currency is really alive between the two of you.
Mm, mm. I love that. I love that. So when I look at your book and I kind of say, well, what's different? One of the things that jumps out at me, Mick, is you look at the data. Like you just say that's a really good thing that LinkedIn provides us, which to be honest with you, I don't know if the other platforms do allow you to not only know your data, but download your data. And so you talk about how we should be taking advantage of that and measuring things and looking at things, and you're quite the analytical, nerd. I love it.
Yeah, I am. But the reason why I emphasize that data is that we compare ourselves with other people, and there is no way you can compare yourself to somebody else. We all have a different network. We all have a different objective for being on LinkedIn. We all operate on a different scale, and yet we keep comparing ourselves to other people, and that doesn't work. So that data that LinkedIn provides us, which we all can debate whether it's good data or bad data, but it's the data we have to live by. If you take a look at that data and your own, at least you can judge whether you're going forward, backwards, or sideways. And if you look at somebody else, you're always going to have somebody who's better than you. I mean, I'm sure that the gurus have people that they look up to. While actually I know, on the other hand, you've got the newbies who look up to people like you, me, and some other people. So I think the only answer to how to improve your use, and that's part of what I also explain in the book, is looking at your own data and improving that. And then it becomes meaningful. You understand why you're getting results or why you're not getting results.
That's brilliant, and I love you have a lot of case studies in the book, and they're short and,
Mhm.
just, this person and here's where they came, this is the changes they made,
Right.
and then this and then you
Yep.
give the data of the results, and I think that is
Mhm.
key because at the end of the day, we have to actually see if we make a change, well, how do I know it's being effective? The data will actually tell you,
Right.
are you getting more
Right.
profile views? Are you getting more DMs? There are different things that we can be looking at
Mhm.
because we don't want to be
Right.
just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks because that doesn't help us at the
True.
end of the day.
But at the other thing you have to realize is these case studies are case studies for those people. Never compare yourself to those people. Look at your own data and then go from there, maybe following their route or the idea that's behind what they've changed. And then if you see the change, it will be on your own, in your own network, on your own data. And I mean, obviously, people love to get case studies and examples of other people, but don't look at the unique numbers they have, but transform that or get the idea and then apply that to your personal situation.
That's a really good point because we don't want to compare ourselves with everybody else because we're all on different
Mhm.
journeys. We, like you said, there's even differences in how LinkedIn's going to work in one country versus the other. So there's just so many different
Yep.
things. That's why you can't just say, "Oh, doing a post." Like people want to know what's the magic time to do a post. There is no magic time. There's no magic post. There's no magic anything. It all depends on you. So I like your
Exactly.
idea that it's like if I'm going to do something, maybe I need to have a data snapshot where I was before and then do something and
Exactly.
then where I am afterwards because then I can truly say, Did that work or not work?
Well, this is one of the major challenges is that a lot of people don't have a zero measuring point to start with. Now, any point is good in time, but you've got to put a stick in the ground and say, these are my numbers today, and compare them to these numbers. But if you keep looking at, I mean, it's people are saying, oh, my reach is down. From what? I mean, yeah, it feels like that. And yeah, it probably feels like that, but you don't have a true measuring stick. People just throw out numbers. Well, I think you can get from your own data the actual numbers that you want to have, put a stick in the ground, and go from there.
I love that. I love that. So we have actually come to the end of our time together. It always goes so quickly. I just
Mhm.
want to remind everybody that your book is officially launching on Friday, June the 19th, and it will be available in paperback. It will be available
Yep.
in Kindle, and there will be special launch pricing so that
Options.
people should go ahead and, go follow Mick. If you want to be kind and connect, you better put a nice message out there to Mick. And you're advertising your launch specials as we're getting closer and closer to book launch day. So if they just go
Yep.
to your profile, they should see everything, right, Mick? So
Yep.
is there anything you want
Exactly.
to, any kind of parting words of wisdom you want to share with everybody before we click off for today?
Well, writing that book has actually triggered in my mind writing more books because I didn't think I had it in me to write a book. I mean, we all know that. But it actually has given me a nice taste of how it feels to make that journey. And I want to do more books. I don't know what time frame and stuff like that, but yeah, if there's one thing I've learned, I've discovered a lot about myself, including the fact that I like writing books.
Mm, that's great. That's great. And sometimes you're just kind of like, who knew that we get to this stage of our life and just want to be these prolific authors that just keep writing and writing. But you know what? You've acquired that wisdom over time, Mick. And so now's the time to I got to get it out in the world.
True. Yeah, maybe one other thing is that my premise has always been if I write a book, I'm not going to try and write a book that becomes the ultimate, the bestseller ever. If it happens, I will be very happy. But I've never started from that point of view. I've started from, I need to get it out of my system. I have a lot to offer. So let's, in the spirit of sharing, I'll share all my knowledge in that book.
And I like that too, because you're basically saying, I'm getting this book out there for the people that need it. They'll know they need it and they'll get it. And then
Yep.
they get
Yep.
the quality of your message. They get to learn from you. So that's good. I'm never about the bestsellers either. It's just getting it out there to the right people that are looking for that
Exactly.
information. That's great. That's great.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you for being here today, Mick, and thank you to everybody who is
You're welcome.
listening, and we hope you'll be back next week for another edition of the Easy Peasy Books podcast. Okay, bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, from author to authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.